Hold on tight, friends, because the story I'm about to tell you is a true emotional roller coaster. If this is your first time here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and smash the like on this video. You definitely do not want to miss the incredible conclusion of this story about lost love and unexpected fatherhood. And of course, let me know your reactions in the comments as the story unfolds. The airport encounter that changed everything. Picture the scene. You're walking through a crowded airport, minding your own business, when suddenly you see a face from your past. Not just any face, but the very face that still haunts your dreams. And in her arms, she is holding a child, a baby with eyes so frighteningly familiar that it feels like a punch to the gut. This isn't a movie, friends. This is exactly what happened to Michael. "Is that your child?" Michael blurted out. His voice cracked with disbelief. Maria clutched the small bundle tighter to herself, and her gaze turned icy. "That is none of your business," she replied, and her words were a bitter sting. "We are done, Michael. Long done." The chaos of JFK International Airport turned into a background hum. There was only him, Maria, and this baby with striking sapphire eyes that were identical to his own. "Maria, please, I just want to talk," Michael pleaded, taking a hesitant step forward. "We have nothing to talk about. Goodbye." Michael Torrance, 35 years old, a man who closed multi-million-dollar deals without even blinking. But watching Maria Grace disappear into the stream of people with a child in her arms, he felt the ground drop out from under his feet. He had just returned to New York after closing a massive contract in Tokyo. His green tech company, Ecotech Solutions, was skyrocketing. However, his personal life had been a scorched wasteland since Maria left him 1 year, 2 months, and 18 days ago. While he waited for his luggage, his mind replayed their last night together. The harsh words, the screaming, the tears. "I'm not ready for a family," he had said then. Or at least, that was how she had understood it. The taxi ride to his penthouse in Tribeca passed in a fog. The child, how old was he? 6 months? Maybe 7? The dates spun in his head like a mad roulette wheel. The moment he walked into his apartment, his phone vibrated. It was his mother, Eleanor. "Son, are you home? How was the trip?" "Fine, Mom," he muttered, dropping his suitcase. "Everything is fine." "You sound strange, Mike. What happened?" Michael hesitated. His mother always had a sixth sense. "I saw Maria at the airport." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "Was she with a child?" Eleanor finally asked. Michael's heart beat faster. "Did you know she has a son?" "I saw her a few months ago at Dr. Rubenstein's clinic. She was bringing a baby in for a checkup. She didn't see me. But I..." Eleanor paused. "Son, that boy has your eyes. Exactly like your grandfather Anthony's." Michael collapsed onto the sofa, feeling his world spin on its axis. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to hurt you if I was wrong." After hanging up, Michael spent a sleepless night looking through his old childhood photos. The same blue eyes he saw today, looking back at him from Maria's arms, confirmed the truth. The next morning, determined, but with dark circles under his eyes, he called Sophia, Maria's best friend, and a prestigious pediatrician. "Michael, what a surprise." Sophia's voice was guarded. "How can I help? I need you to be honest with me. Maria's son, is he mine?" "I can't discuss my patients, you know that." "Sophia, please, I have a right to know if I have a son." A long sigh preceded her answer. "It's not my place to tell you. Talk to Maria. I tried yesterday. She wouldn't listen. Give her time. She's been through a lot. Alone." The word alone pierced his chest like a dagger. Maria had gone through pregnancy and raising an infant completely alone while he was expanding his business empire in Asia. His next call was to Cyril Peters, his lawyer and college friend. "What are my rights if it turns out I have a son I didn't know about?" Cyril listened patiently as Michael recounted the airport meeting. "Legally, you can demand a paternity test, and if positive, claim parental rights. But Mike, I recommend you try to resolve this peacefully first. Custody battles are hard on everyone, especially the child. Michael thanked him and decided he needed to see Maria's father. Peter Grace had always treated him like a son. That same evening, he showed up at the Grace home in Brooklyn Heights. The garden was as impeccable as he remembered. Peter opened the door, and his expression shifted from surprise to recognition, and finally, to a mix of sadness and resignation. "Michael," the older man said, "I suppose this day had to come." "Peter, I need to know the truth. Am I the father of Maria's son?" The old man invited him in. In the living room, on the mantelpiece, stood a recent photo. Maria holding a baby, both smiling at the camera. "Maria found out she was pregnant 3 weeks after your breakup," Peter finally admitted. "She decided not to tell you because she was convinced your career was more important to you than starting a family." Peter's words confirmed his suspicion, but instead of relief, Michael felt an abyss open up before him. He had a son he didn't know, who didn't know him, and whose existence had been hidden from him. "His name is Leo," Peter added, as if reading his thoughts. "Leo Michael Grace." The name echoed in Michael's mind. Leo Michael. She had given him his middle name, despite everything. "Why, Peter? Why didn't she tell me?" Michael asked, his voice cracking. The old man took a deep breath before answering. "In your last conversation, Maria heard you say that a child would ruin your plans, that you weren't ready to be a father." Michael shook his head in frustration. "That's not what I said. I told her I wanted to be ready, that I was afraid of being like my father, who abandoned us. I wanted to offer her stability. I wasn't rejecting the idea of a family." Peter put a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes a misunderstanding causes more damage than a lie, son." Discussion question. What do you think was the main cause of this misunderstanding? Did Michael really express himself poorly? Or did Maria's fears distort his words? Write your theories in the comments. A mother's struggle versus a father's fight. Meanwhile, in a small but bright architectural office in Soho, Maria was working on blueprints for an eco-house while Leo slept in a carrier. Her phone vibrated, breaking her concentration. "How are you?" asked the voice of Paulina, her younger sister. "Fine, but busy," Maria replied, not stopping her drawing. "You saw him, didn't you? Dad told me Michael is back." Maria put down her pencil. "I met him at the airport. It was unpleasant. And no, I didn't tell him anything about Leo. And I'm not going to." Paulina was silent for a moment. "Maria, you know I support you in everything, but he has a right to know. And Leo has a right to know his father." "Do you really think so?" Maria's voice rose. "After he told me a child would destroy his plans, after he chose his precious company over us, are you sure that's exactly what he said?" The question hung in the air as Leo began to stir. Maria cut the call short, promising to talk later. The next day, Michael showed up at the pediatric clinic where Sophia worked. He waited patiently until her shift ended. "You're crossing a line, Michael," Sophia said, seeing him in the empty waiting room. "I need answers, Sophia. I spoke to Peter. I know Leo is my son." Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, as if weighing her options. "I can't break doctor-patient confidentiality, but as a friend." She paused. "Leo was born on October 20th. It was a difficult birth. Maria was alone, aside from Paulina and her father." "My God," Michael muttered. "Why didn't she contact me? Are you serious? You were in Singapore, closing the deal of a lifetime, according to all the business magazines." Sophia's words were a punch to the gut. While he was celebrating his professional success, Maria was facing the birth of their son in solitude. "What is he like?" Michael asked, with a vulnerability that surprised Sophia. "He's an incredible boy. He has your eyes, your smile. He's calm, observant, and Maria is an amazing mother, despite how hard it's been." Michael nodded, trying to picture his son, trying to reconstruct the lost months from crumbs of information. "What are you going to do?" Sophia asked. Talk to her. Make her understand that I want to be part of Leo's life, that I have a right to be. Be careful how you approach her, Michael. Maria has built a wall around herself since she found out about the pregnancy. Breaking it down won't be easy. That same evening, Michael contacted Cyril again. He told him about the conversation with Peter and asked for legal advice. You could request a DNA test and demand visitation rights through the court, Cyril explained. But I recommend you try a less aggressive path. I don't want to take anything away from Maria, Michael clarified. I just want to know my son, to be part of his life. Then prove it to her. Actions are worth more than legal threats. Michael pondered those words as he drove back to his apartment. On the way, he passed a baby store. Without thinking twice, he parked and went inside. An hour later, he walked out with bags full of clothes, toys, and books for Leo. He didn't know when he would be able to give them to him, but he needed to do something, anything, that would bring him closer to the reality of fatherhood. Meanwhile, Maria was having dinner with Paulina in her small apartment. Leo was already asleep in his crib. Michael went to see Dad, Paulina commented, watching her sister's reaction. Maria put down her fork. And what did he tell him? The truth, that Leo is his son. He had no right, Maria muttered. Maria, it would have happened sooner or later. New York isn't that big. You could have moved to Chicago, to Seattle, and run your whole life. What would you tell Leo when he asked about his father? Maria didn't answer immediately. She had replayed this conversation in her head 1,000 times. I would tell him the truth, that his father chose a career over a family. Are you sure that's fair? Or even true? That night, after Paulina left, Maria took out a box she kept under her bed. Inside were clippings from magazines with news about Michael and his successful company. Ecotech visionary Michael Torrance revolutionizes sustainable tech. Photos of him at galas, conferences, always impeccable, always smiling. There was also an ultrasound picture, the first image of Leo she had never dared to share with him, and a letter she had written but never sent, telling him about the pregnancy. The sound of her phone made her jump, a message from a number she knew by heart, even though she had deleted it months ago. Maria, I know the truth about Leo. I'm not looking for conflict. I just want to know my son. Please, let's talk. Michael. With trembling hands, Maria turned off her phone without replying. She knew this conversation was inevitable, but she wasn't ready. Not yet. What she didn't know was that Michael had already made a decision. Tomorrow, he would go to her studio. He couldn't wait any longer to face the truth. Confrontation and crisis. The morning over New York was gray. Michael arrived early at the small building where Maria had her architecture studio. He waited in the car, mentally rehearsing what he would say, how to keep calm when his entire being was a whirlwind of emotions. At exactly 9 a.m., he saw her approaching. Leo wasn't with her. For a moment, he felt disappointment, but then he realized it was better this way. This conversation would be heavy. He waited another 10 minutes before entering the building, climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, and stopped in front of the door with the modest sign, Grace Eco Architecture. He took a deep breath and knocked. Maria opened the door and froze when she saw him. What are you doing here? We need to talk, Michael replied firmly. And this time, I won't take no for an answer. After a moment of hesitation, Maria stepped aside, letting him in. The studio was small but bright, with project models and blueprints covering almost every surface. You have 5 minutes, she said, crossing her arms over her chest. Michael looked her straight in the eyes and asked the question he had come for. Is he my son? The silence hung between them like an abyss. Seconds felt like hours as Michael waited, holding his breath. Finally, Maria nodded slowly. Yes, Leo is your son, but we don't need your money or your pity. The confirmation, though expected, hit him with force. He was a father. He had a son of his own flesh and blood. Not just a suspicion or a possibility. It's not about money, Maria, he replied, trying to control the tremor in his voice. "It's about my right to know my son and his right to have a father. Now you talk about rights?" Maria let out a bitter laugh. "Where were those rights when you told me a child would ruin your plans?" "I never said that." Michael took a step toward her. "I said I wanted to wait, to be ready. I was afraid of failing like a father, the way mine failed me. Your exact words were, 'A child right now would destroy everything I've built,'" Maria countered, her eyes shining with held-back tears. "No, I said I needed to strengthen the company so I could offer us stability, so I wouldn't have to travel constantly and be absent." Michael ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Maria, I grew up with a father who was never there, who put work above family until he finally abandoned us. My biggest fear has always been repeating that script." Maria looked at him with disbelief, but something in her eyes shifted. A crack in the wall. "You had 6 months to get to know your son, Michael. 6 months that no one will give back to me," he continued. "His first smile, his first sounds, moments I lost because you decided for me, for us." "You were in Tokyo when he was born," she replied in a softer voice. "And then in Singapore, then in Dubai, far away, always far away, because I didn't know I had a reason to stay." Maria's phone rang, interrupting the moment. Her expression changed instantly when she saw the screen. "What happened, Paulina?" she answered with alarm. Michael watched the color drain from Maria's face as she listened to her sister. "I'm coming," she said finally, ending the call. "I need to go. Leo is sick. He has a very high fever." Without thinking, Michael grabbed his keys. "I'll drive you. My car is downstairs. We'll get there faster." Maria hesitated for just a second before nodding, grabbing her bag, and hurriedly closing the studio. The drive to Maria's apartment was tense and silent. Michael drove with focus, casting worried glances at her. When they arrived, Paulina was waiting for them at the entrance with a visibly feverish Leo in her arms. The baby had red cheeks and was breathing rapidly. "The fever isn't going down," Paulina explained desperately. "I already gave him the medicine Sophia recommended, but he's still burning up." Michael instinctively stepped forward and, to everyone's surprise, including his own, reached out for the child. "Let me see him," he asked. Paulina looked at Maria, who after a moment of doubt gave a slight nod. Paulina handed Leo to Michael, who held him with surprising naturalness. It was the first time he had held his son in his arms. Despite the situation, he couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion. Leo looked at him with eyes glazed from the fever, those same blue eyes, identical to his own. "We need to take him to the hospital," Michael decided right there. "The fever is too high." Maria didn't argue. The 4 of them got into Michael's car and headed to the nearest children's hospital. In the emergency room, waiting for test results, Michael and Maria sat side by side, both staring intently at Leo, who had finally fallen asleep after receiving medication intravenously. "He has an ear infection," the doctor explained, returning. "He'll need antibiotics, but he'll be fine. The fever should break in the next few hours." Relief was visible on both their faces. When the doctor left, they were alone again. Leo slept between them. "He looks exactly like you," Maria murmured, breaking the silence. "Everyone has said so since he was born." Michael examined his son's face, trying to recognize himself in those small features. "He has your nose," he said finally with a half-smile. "And probably your stubbornness." Maria couldn't suppress a slight smile. "We have that in common." After a minute of silence, Michael spoke again, this time in a serious tone. "The day we broke up, I didn't say I didn't want children, Maria. I said I wanted to be ready to be a better father than mine was. My biggest fear has always been failing a family." He paused, swallowing hard. "But if I had known, if you had given me a chance to know, I would have been there, Maria. For every ultrasound, every kick, the birth, everything." Maria looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since they met. "I saw you on the news, always traveling, always successful," she whispered. I thought I was doing the right thing by not tying you down to us. It wouldn't have been a tie down, Maria. It would have been a liberation. Leo stirred in his sleep, and both instinctively reached out to soothe him. Their fingers touched on the child's tiny forehead, and for a moment, neither of them pulled away. Discussion question. What do you think was the turning point in Maria's heart when she realized Michael was telling the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments. Rebuilding bridges. The following days were a whirlwind of change. After the scare at the hospital, Maria reluctantly agreed to let Michael visit Leo. At first, she insisted the visits take place under supervision in her apartment. 3 times a week for 2 hours, she proposed, as if negotiating a contract. 5 times for 3 hours, Michael countered. They settled on 4 visits a week, 2.5 hours each. A compromise neither found ideal, but both could accept. The first official visit took place on a Tuesday afternoon. Michael arrived on time with a teddy bear almost the size of Leo. Seriously? Maria asked, opening the door. You couldn't start with something smaller. Michael shrugged, smiling. I have 6 months to make up for. Leo, already recovered from the infection, watched the stranger from his mother's arms with curiosity, but no fear. When Michael offered him the bear, the baby immediately grabbed it, fascinated by the softness. He likes it, Michael said, with a note of pride in his voice. Maria rolled her eyes, but couldn't suppress a slight smile. At this age, he likes anything he can chew on. The first visits were awkward. Maria always stayed in the same room, watching, while Michael clumsily tried to connect with his son. He changed diapers with the concentration of a man defusing a bomb, prepared bottles, following the instructions to the letter, and read children's stories in exaggerated voices that made Leo laugh. One evening, while Michael played with Leo on the rug, Maria watched him from the sofa. The baby had recently started crawling and moved with surprising speed. He's very quick for his age, Michael noted. Sophia says he might start walking soon, Maria replied. He's very advanced in everything, like his mom, Michael said. And for the first time since their reunion, the comment didn't sound strained or calculated. It was just a sincere observation. Maria looked at him in surprise, and for a moment, saw the man she had fallen in love with years ago. Weeks went by, and Michael completely reorganized his professional life. He delegated trips to his team, scheduled video conferences instead of in-person meetings, and blocked out visit times as immovable commitments. Cyril, his lawyer, noticed this during a meeting. I've never seen you run out of the office at 5 p.m., he noted curiously. It's my time with Leo, Michael explained simply. I won't miss it for anything in the world. He's changed you, Cyril observed. For the better, I think. Michael nodded. Leo had changed him, or perhaps awakened the part of him that had always been there, waiting. A month after their reunion, Michael converted one of the rooms in his penthouse for Leo. He filled it with educational toys, books, and a crib. He helped assemble it himself, to the surprise of his personal assistant. I want to ask you something, he said to Maria during one of the visits. I'd like to bring Leo to my apartment sometime so he can see his room. Maria clenched her jaw. I'm not sure, Michael. He's still very young. You can come too, of course, he hastened to add. I'm not trying to separate you. I just want him to know this space, which is his too. After a few days of thought, Maria finally agreed. The first visit to Michael's apartment took place on a Saturday. Maria was impressed by the room he had prepared for Leo, though she tried not to show it. You thought of everything, she admitted, running her hand over the smooth wood of the eco-friendly crib. I want to do everything right, he replied, while Leo enthusiastically explored his new toys. New beginnings and a home designed with love. In the following weeks, the tension between them began to gradually subside. Conversations were no longer strictly limited to Leo. Sometimes they talked about work, mutual friends, even movies or books. One day, Maria came to pick Leo up from Michael's apartment and found him asleep in his father's arms as Michael read him a story. I didn't want to wake him, Michael whispered. He fell asleep at the part where the baby elephant finds his family. Maria watched the scene. Her son, completely safe and comfortable in his father's arms. And Michael, holding Leo as if he were the most precious thing in the world. Something stirred inside her, an emotion she had tried to bury. "Want some coffee while we wait for him to wake up?" Michael offered. Maria nodded, and for the first time, they sat together on the penthouse terrace, with the panorama of New York City at their feet, simply talking like two people sharing something important, rather than adversaries. As Leo's first birthday approached, the inevitable question arose: how to celebrate it? "I was thinking of something small in my apartment," Maria commented. "Just close family." Michael nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. "Of course, I understand. I can visit him the next day." Maria studied him for a moment before adding, "But I suppose you're family now too, if you want to come." A smile lit up Michael's face. "I would love to, thank you." The birthday arrived. Maria's small apartment was decorated with balloons and streamers. Peter and Eleanor, the proud grandparents, were the first to arrive. Paulina and Cyril arrived together, which surprised few people. Sophia came with her husband and twins, perfect playmates for Leo. To everyone's surprise, when Leo saw Michael enter with a package in shiny paper, he quickly crawled toward him, reaching out his little arms to be picked up. "Dada!" the toddler exclaimed, uttering his first clear word directed at Michael. Silence fell over the room. Michael felt something break and rebuild inside him simultaneously. With trembling hands, he picked up his son. "Yes, Leo," he whispered in a hoarse voice. "I'm Dada." When he looked at Maria, he saw tears in her eyes. They weren't tears of resentment or sadness. They were tears of recognition, of acceptance. That night, helping Maria clean up after the guests left, Michael finally dared to ask what he had been wondering for weeks. "Why did you give him my name as a middle name?" Maria stopped and looked directly at him. "Because I never wanted him to forget where he came from," she answered sincerely. "Despite everything, I always wanted him to know who his father was." In that moment, as Leo slept peacefully in his crib, surrounded by first birthday gifts, Michael realized they were taking the first steps towards something he had never thought possible. Being a family, whatever form that might take. A new partnership, a deeper bond. 3 months after Leo's birthday, Maria received an unexpected call from Michael. "I have a proposition for you," he said without preamble. "Professional, I mean." "I'm listening," she replied. "Introduced. Ecotech is planning to build a new headquarters. I want it to be a fully sustainable building, a model for the future. And I want you to design it." "Design?" Maria almost dropped the phone. "Are you joking? That's a huge project, Michael. There are architectural firms much bigger than mine that would kill for such an opportunity, and who don't have your vision or your commitment to sustainability," he countered. "Besides, I've seen your work. You're brilliant, Maria." She was silent, processing the offer. "I don't need an answer right now," Michael continued. "Think about it. The project is yours if you want it." That night, while Leo slept, Maria looked through Ecotech's project portfolio. The new headquarters would be the company's most ambitious project to date. A complex of offices, labs, and public spaces designed to redefine corporate architecture in America. The next morning, she called Michael. "I accept, but on one condition." "Which is? We work on the project together. You understand your company's vision better than anyone, and I can translate it into functional and sustainable spaces. It will be a collaboration." A pause hung on the other end of the line. "Sounds perfect," Michael finally replied, and Maria could hear the smile in his voice. They set up a shared workspace in a small studio Michael rented near the Ecotech office. 2 days a week, they met there to work on the project, sometimes with Leo playing in a safe zone they had set up for him. The first sessions were strictly professional. They talked materials, energy efficiency, biophilic design. But gradually, The conversations began to stray beyond the project. "Remember that trip to Vermont?" Michael asked one afternoon, as they examined samples of local stone. "We stayed in that wooden cabin with the courtyard." Maria smiled at the memory. "The host made us herbal tea every morning. That vernacular architecture had a lot to teach us about natural ventilation and light usage." "You were always observant," Michael commented. "I loved that about you." The comment hung between them like an unexpected confession. As the project progressed, so did their relationship. It wasn't a return to who they were before. It was something new, built on a different foundation. They shared raising Leo more fluidly, consulting on decisions, supporting each other. One Saturday, watching Leo take his first unsteady steps in the park, Michael made her a proposal. "I was thinking," he began with some caution, "what if we designed a house?" "A house?" Maria asked, confused. "For who?" "For Leo," Michael replied. "A place where he can grow up with space, with nature, not far from the city, but not in the middle of the chaos. A house that embodies everything we both value." Maria looked at him in surprise. "Are you suggesting we live together?" "I'm suggesting we design a house for our son," Michael clarified. "How we live in it, that's something we can decide later." The idea was bold, but it made sense. Leo would soon need more space. Maria's apartment was small, and while Michael's penthouse was large, it was in too urban an area for a child to grow up freely. "It would have to be upstate," Maria said finally, implicitly accepting the proposal. "Maybe toward Hudson Valley or Westchester." Michael smiled, realizing she was taking the idea seriously. "We could look for plots this weekend, if you want." A home built on love. They found the perfect spot a month later, an acre on the hills overlooking the valley, less than an hour's drive from the city. The plot had century-old trees, a small stream, and enough space to create something truly special. Working on the house plans became a kind of therapy for both of them. Every space reflected their shared values. Large windows for natural light, local materials, water harvesting systems, solar energy. "Leo's room should face east," Maria suggested one evening while they were working in the studio. "So the morning sun wakes him gently." "He'll need space to play outside," Michael added, "with trees to climb when he gets older." "How many rooms exactly are we planning?" Maria asked, noticing the blueprint included 5 bedrooms. Michael hesitated before answering. "I thought maybe Leo might have brothers or sisters one day." Maria looked at him intently, surprised by the implication. "Michael, I'm not guaranteeing anything," she clarified quickly. "Just thinking about future possibilities, whatever form our family takes." That night, after finishing the design edits, Michael drove Maria and Leo to their apartment. The baby had fallen asleep in the car. "I'll help you carry him up," Michael offered. In the quiet intimacy of the apartment, after putting Leo in his crib, they stopped in the living room. There was a different tension between them, an unspoken expectation. "This house project," Maria began. "What are we really doing, Michael?" He took a deep breath before answering. "I think we're rebuilding what we never should have lost." They looked at each other in silence. Years of shared history, pain, and now hope were concentrated in this exchange of gazes. Michael took a step toward her, and for the first time since their reunion, took her hand. "I never stopped loving you," he confessed in a voice barely audible, like a whisper. "But I'll understand if things are different for you now." Maria felt something crumble inside her, the last defensive barrier. "I was so afraid you would eventually leave us that I decided to end everything myself," she confessed, her voice breaking. "It was easier to leave than to wait for you to do it." Michael put a hand on her face, gently stroking her cheek. "I'm not going anywhere, Maria." The kiss that followed was like coming home after a long journey. Familiar and new at the same time, filled with promises and possibilities. The final choice. Construction on the house began in the spring. Maria supervised the work while continuing the Ecotech headquarters project. Michael, for his part, divided his time between the company, Leo, and frequent visits to the construction site. One afternoon, while checking the foundation, Michael received a call that could change everything. "An expansion offer into Europe?" Maria asked that evening when Michael told her about the call. "That's what you always wanted." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "It's a unique opportunity. 3 new offices: New York, Berlin, and Paris." Maria felt a familiar cold settle in her chest. History seemed to be repeating itself. "When do you leave?" she asked, trying to maintain her composure. "I would have to spend at least 6 months there to set up operations," Michael replied, watching Maria's face darken. "If I decide to accept, right?" Maria looked at him in surprise. "Michael, this is your dream. Of course you have to accept." "My dream has changed, Maria," he replied simply. "Or maybe I finally realized what my real dream was." The following days were tense. Despite Michael's words, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that history would repeat itself. Every time she saw him check emails on his phone or speak in German, she felt she was losing him again. One afternoon, while Leo played in Peter's garden, Maria confessed her fears to Paulina. "He'll take the offer. I know it," she said, watching her son try to catch a butterfly. "And we'll be back to square one." "Did he tell you that?" Paulina asked. "He doesn't have to. It's the opportunity of a lifetime." Paulina looked at her sister with irritation. "Haven't you learned anything from all this? Last time you assumed for him instead of asking directly, and look where that got you." Paulina's words resonated with Maria. She was right. She was making the same mistake. That night, after putting Leo down, she decided to talk to him. Michael had come for dinner, and now they were both sitting on the small balcony of the apartment. "I need to know what you're going to do about the offer from Europe," Maria said bluntly. "Not for me, but for Leo. He needs stability." Michael looked at her seriously. "I've considered all options," he replied. "There's a lot at stake." "I understand," Maria said, bracing for the worst. "If you decide to leave, we can set up a schedule of visits and video calls so Leo doesn't lose contact with you." Michael frowned. "What are you talking about? I'm not considering leaving, Maria. I'm considering how to restructure my company so I don't have to." Maria looked at him in confusion. "But you said you'd have to spend 6 months there." "If I followed the traditional expansion plan, yes," Michael explained. "But I've been working with my team on a different structure. We'll hire local directors for each European office, and I'll supervise from here, with short trips when strictly necessary." "You would do that?" Maria asked, surprised. "You would give up being at the helm of the expansion?" Michael took her hands. "I'm not giving up anything, Maria. I'm choosing what really matters. My company will continue to grow, but not at the expense of my family. Not again." Mid-roll, call to action. If you are loving this heartwarming story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. What do you think of Michael's decision? Do you think he is doing the right thing? Let us know in the comments below. A promise for forever. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Michael announced his restructuring plan, surprising the board, but ultimately gaining their approval. Meanwhile, construction on the house was progressing by leaps and bounds. The walls were already up, and the roof would soon be finished. One afternoon, while supervising the installation of solar panels, Michael took Maria to the highest point of the plot, from where the entire property could be seen. "How do you like it?" he asked, hugging her from behind as they contemplated their future home. "It's perfect," she replied, leaning back against his chest. "Better than I imagined." "There's something I wanted to ask you," Michael said, suddenly becoming serious. "You and Leo will move here when it's finished." Maria turned to look at him. "I thought that was the idea." "No, it is." Michael paused. "I don't want to take anything for granted. I want it to be your decision. Completely yours." Maria studied his face, realizing he wasn't speaking directly. "Are you asking us to live together as a family?" "Yes," Michael replied simply. "That is exactly what I'm asking." Maria smiled a genuine smile that reached her eyes. I think you already know the answer. 3 months later, the house was almost ready. They decided to throw a small housewarming party, inviting family and close friends. It would also be the official presentation of their reconciliation, although for many, it was already obvious what was happening between them. Opening day turned out sunny and perfect. The house shone under the sunlight. Walls of local stone, combined with huge windows, green roofs covered in vegetation, and a courtyard with a century-old oak tree they had preserved during construction. Guests began arriving at noon. Peter and Eleanor, the proud grandparents, were the first. Paulina and Cyril arrived together, which surprised few. Sophia came with her husband and twins. Leo ran around the house in delight, showing it to anyone who would look. Michael had prepared a small speech to welcome everyone, but seeing his loved ones gathered in the house they had created, he felt he needed to do something more meaningful. After everyone had toured the house and gathered in the courtyard to eat, Michael asked for attention. First, I want to thank you all for sharing this day with us, he began. This house represents much more than just a place to live. It is a symbol of a second chance, a restored family. He looked at Maria, who was holding Leo in her arms. Both were smiling at him. A year and a half ago, I was at an airport, believing my life was full because my business was going well. I had no idea what I was actually losing. Michael walked over to Maria and took her free hand. Once I lost the most important thing because I didn't know how to say what I really wanted. I won't make the same mistake twice. In front of the surprised guests, he got down on one knee and pulled a small box from his pocket. Maria Grace, I want to build my life with you and with Leo here, in the house we designed together. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Maria, with tears in her eyes, nodded amidst the thunderous applause of the guests. Yes, she answered finally. Yes, I agree. Michael slipped the ring onto her finger and stood up to kiss her, while Leo clapped his hands, not quite understanding what was happening, but infected by the joy of the moment. When the kiss ended, Maria whispered something in Michael's ear. I have something I want to tell you too, she murmured, taking his hand and placing it on her stomach. Our family will continue to grow. Michael's eyes widened, full of surprise and emotion. This time, he would be there for every moment. From the very beginning, the celebration continued until sunset. As the last rays of sun illuminated their new home, Michael held Leo in his arms, watching Maria's radiant face. The teddy bear he had given on his first visit was still Leo's favorite, despite all the new toys. Dada, said the toddler, touching Michael's cheek. Home? Yes, Leo, Michael replied, feeling his heart might burst with happiness. Our home! The circle had finally closed. From strangers who loved each other, to separated parents, and now to a family united by love and truth. The life they built together was more beautiful than any building they could have ever designed. The beautiful chaos of family. 2 years later, the sound of children's laughter filled the garden of the house on the hills. Leo, now 3 years old, ran after soap bubbles, while his 1-year-old sister, Sophia, tried to follow him with unsteady steps. Maria watched the children from the terrace, a cup of coffee in hand and a smile on her lips. It still seemed incredible to her how her life had changed in recent years, from a single mother struggling to balance career and parenting, to having a complete family and her own architectural studio, nationally recognized for its eco-friendly designs. What are you thinking about? Michael asked, sitting down next to her and wrapping one arm around her. About how lucky we are, she replied, leaning into him. About how close we were to losing all this, but we didn't lose it, and that's what matters. Michael gently kissed her forehead. The house they designed together had become the center of their lives. Michael turned one of the rooms into an office, from where he managed eco-tech, now operating in 6 countries. International trips were still part of his job, but never exceeded 4 days. and Maria and the children accompanied him whenever possible. Ecotech's headquarters in New York, designed by Maria, opened last year, winning numerous awards for innovation and sustainability. The success of the project boosted her career, allowing her to carefully choose projects to balance with family life. "Mommy, look what I found!" shouted Leo, running toward them with something in his small hands. "Careful, my love," warned Maria as the boy climbed the terrace steps. Leo opened his hands, revealing a small green frog. "It looks like the one in the story Daddy reads," he said excitedly. "Does it really?" agreed Michael, feigning amazement. "It must be Kermit the Frog's cousin from the pond. Can I show it to Sophia?" "Of course, but then we have to let it go." "Okay. Her family is probably looking for her." Leo nodded solemnly and returned to the garden, now stepping very carefully so as not to scare his treasure. "He's just like you when he focuses on something," Maria noted, with the same expression of determination. "But he has your heart," countered Michael. "Always worrying about others, always sharing." The doorbell interrupted their conversation. A second later, Paulina and Cyril, now officially engaged, appeared with a bottle of wine and a cake. "We brought supplies for the family gathering," announced Paulina, hugging her sister. Soon, Peter and Eleanor arrived, having become inseparable in recent years, sharing the joy of being grandparents, and a friendship many suspected was something more. While the adults prepared food and set the table on the terrace, the children played in the shade of the century-old oak. This tree had become the silent guardian of their happiness, a witness to birthdays, anniversaries, and everyday moments weaving their family history. "Remember the first time we came to see this plot?" Michael asked Maria, pouring drinks. "How could I forget?" She smiled. "Leo was barely walking and fell into that giant puddle. We were all covered in mud. That was when I knew this would be our home," Michael admitted. "Seeing you covered in mud, laughing with Leo in your arms, you never looked more beautiful." Maria kissed him tenderly, still amazed at how after all these years, Michael continued to look at her as if she were the only woman in the world. The evening passed in conversation, laughter, and plans for the future. Paulina and Cyril announced they had set a wedding date, inspired by Michael and Maria's story. "If you two could overcome all that, we can handle anything," joked Cyril, who had gone from being just Michael's lawyer to a close friend. Soon, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in orange and pink tones, Michael took little Sophia in his arms, while Maria looked for Leo, who was playing with the other Sophias, the pediatrician. Children, who had recently arrived for the gathering. "Bath time, champion," Maria said, though she knew convincing him would be a battle. To her surprise, Leo agreed without protest. "Okay, but Daddy tells the story about the millionaire and the mommy who met at the airport." Maria and Michael exchanged knowing looks. It was Leo's favorite fairy tale, a childish and embellished version of their own reunion, which Michael had turned into a special story for his son. "Of course," promised Michael, with sound effects and everything. Later, after bathing and putting the children to bed, Michael and Maria returned to the terrace. The guests had left, and silence reigned in the house. A full moon illuminated the valley below them, and the lights of New York flickered in the distance. "Do you know what day it is today?" Michael asked, pouring 2 glasses of wine. "How could I forget?" replied Maria. "Exactly 2 years since we moved here, and 3.5 years since we met at the airport." "The worst and best day of my life," mused Michael, "watching you leave with Leo in your arms, not knowing he was my son, and then finding out the truth." Maria took his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. "Sometimes I wonder, what would have happened if we hadn't met that day?" "We would have met anyway," Michael replied confidently. "There are people destined to be together, no matter how many turns their paths take." They sat in silence, enjoying the peace of the night and each other's closeness. In the nursery, the baby monitor transmitted the soft, rhythmic breathing of Leo and Sophia. "Remember what you told me that day at the airport?" Michael asked after a while. "I don't want to know anything about you," quoted Maria, smiling at the irony. "The universe must have been laughing at me." "The universe knew what it was doing," countered Michael, pulling her closer. "Sometimes we need to lose something to truly understand its value. And sometimes," added Maria, looking at the house they built together, at the hearth they created, "what we lose returns to us stronger and more beautiful than before." In the distance, the lights of a plane cut through the night sky, reminding them of where their story began. From a chance meeting at an airport to a complete family, from harsh words born of fear to promises of love kept day after day. Life doesn't always follow the plan we build, but sometimes it leads us exactly where we are supposed to be. Final call to action. What an incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment and tell us which part resonated with you the most. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories, and see you in the next video.